Hello, how can I help you today?
Hey, I have an appointment for tomorrow, and I forgot what time it was at. Can you help me find that appointment, please?
Sure. Can you please provide me with your name so I can locate your appointment?
Justin Melendez.
Thank you, Justin. Give me a moment while I look up your appointment details. Justin, your confirmed appointment is scheduled for tomorrow, Tuesday, April 1st at 2 p.m. Let me know if there's anything else I can assist you with.
Actually, can you reschedule that appointment for Wednesday at 3 p.m.?
Got it. Give me a moment while I reschedule your appointment for Wednesday at 3 p.m. Your appointment has been successfully rescheduled to Wednesday, April 2nd at 3 p.m. Let me know if there's anything else I can assist you with.
Yeah, actually, can you also book me an appointment, a new one for, say, Friday at 8 a.m.?
Sure. Give me a moment while I check availability for Friday at 8 a.m. An appointment is available for Friday, April 4th at 8 a.m. Let me go ahead and book that for you. Give me a moment. Your new appointment has been successfully booked for Friday, April 4th at 8 a.m. Let me know if there's anything else I can assist you with.
Yeah, on second thought, that appointment that we rescheduled earlier, can you just go ahead and cancel that one?
Understood. Give me a moment while I cancel the rescheduled appointment for Wednesday at 3 p.m. The rescheduled appointment for Wednesday, April 2nd at 3 p.m. has been successfully canceled. Let me know if there's anything else I can assist you with.
That's all, thank you.
All right, so that was an example call recording, sped up, of course, because I didn't want to bore you to death. But that is the work of our full-blown appointment receptionist. And so instead of just making an appointment agent that can book appointments, get open slots, I went ahead and built a receptionist that can actually find existing appointments, update existing appointments, cancel existing appointments, book new appointments, and so on and so forth. Now, in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I did that. A system like this can be extremely valuable for any business that works on an appointment basis. Think like a dental clinic or a doctor's office or a med spa or a chiropractor. I think that if this is treated as an inbound call, then this can be extremely helpful, helping the front desk out in alleviating some of that workload, some of that call volume that may be able to be serviced by a voice AI agent such as this one. Now, if you're new to the channel, my name is Justin Melendez, and I like to create content just like this as I solve problems in my own business as well as in other people's businesses. I like to show you exactly how I did it, the method I used to solve the problem, in hopes that you find it valuable and you're able to solve problems in your own business. Now, before I get into the nitty-gritty of all the technical details, all of this information, to include the Retell, we used Retell, by the way, the Retell AI appointment agent, the copy and paste template where you can just import in and follow along, and the N8N template that we use, this entire workflow that I spent hours building, is going to be available for free inside of the School Community Automation Station. It's completely free. Just hop in there, find the video, and download the resources so that you can follow along with me. Now, lastly, the last thing I would ask is subscribe to the channel. If you find this content valuable, please hit the subscribe button down below. I've noticed that the majority of people who watch these videos don't actually subscribe, and I'm trying to get that subscriber count up, so the least you can do is subscribe. Enough of that. Let's go on and let's check out what we're going to do. So there's a few principles that I want to cover before we dive into the technicals. And I've made multiple videos on how to create appointment agents. And at this point, I've created appointment agents or appointment workflows that had AI built into them. And I'll show you what I mean here in a second. I've used AI agents. If you don't know what that is by now, which I'm sure most of you guys do, it's I struggle to say it's an effective way to do business, but it's a way to do business. And then now I'm starting to realize that the majority of my workflows are redundant and maybe a little bit costly. So I'm trying to get better. I'm iterating on how I create these workflows, on how I implement these workflows. And so I made this diagram for you here. And essentially what I wanted to show is, I wanted to show the three components to this system. Now there are more than three components in this system, but the major components here from a high level are the voice agent, which is hosted on Retell AI. And please note that this isn't specific to Retell AI. You can be using Vappy, Assistable, SynthFlow, whatever voice AI agent service that you provide or you prefer works. The fundamentals will still apply. And so in this case, we're using Retell AI. And I want to keep all the AI workload in that. And what do I mean by that? I want to make sure that anything that requires AI, such as summarization or formatting of data or analytics of the call or the transcript, I want to keep it inside of the voice AI agent. And why do I want to do that? One, we're already paying for it on that platform. So we're already using LLMs like GPT-4o on the back end, or maybe Claude on the back end of the voice AI agent. So we can just go ahead and leverage it where the data sits instead of transferring the data to another system, having it be processed and having to prompt a whole new agent. why don't you just use the agent that's already in place when the call is occurring and where the call is occurring? The data is already being processed there, so there's no need to send data that's unnecessary across the wire and then go have to format that data and then hopefully come up with the result that you want. And it also delivers the data ready to go to the workflow, and the workflow being N8N. Now, whether you're using N8N or make.com, it doesn't matter. You want this section of the workflow to be fast, predictable, reliable, and cost-effective. And so the way you do that is by creating a linear workflow. I'll show you the differences here in a second. And remove AI if you can at all points, because that'll reduce the cost and also improve the reliability and predictability of how the workflow is going to perform. And lastly, the CRM component, you just need the information to be inside the CRM accurately and get it there efficiently in a timely manner so that the business can take advantage of it. Now, if we come over here, let's take a look at what I mean by AI agents. Notice that we aren't doing this. And if you're new to the AI agent space and you don't know what this is, good. You don't need to know what it is. Just kidding. This is very popular right now. And essentially an AI agent is a sort of a brain node where you assign different tools, and essentially you can give it some sort of input like, hey, book me a new appointment, and it'll look at its set of tools automatically and pick the right tool, hopefully, and take action. But this costs money, and what I've seen over time is that this is unreliable and it is unpredictable. It takes a tad bit longer to execute as well because it goes through multiple iterations, processing the same data through multiple tools, and then it shoots the output. Now, the problem with this is it relies heavily on prompting. The administrator or you, whoever's creating, the system creator, it relies heavily on their prompting. It also relies heavily on an external LLM that we don't control, such as Google Flash or GPT-4o or Claude 3.7 or 3.5. Those things we do not control. And so if at any moment any of those things change, then you start to see unpredictable behavior. And we saw this recently whenever GPT-4o was released and I was using GPT 3.5. It seemed like the performance of the GPT 3.5 LLM was degraded. And so I started to get weird results, and you've probably experienced the same. And so for now, I'm just staying away from the agentic workflows such as this one. Now, in this workflow, it doesn't really look the same. This is more of a linear workflow or a reactive workflow, as some like to call it, but there's still AI involved in it. If you notice where the red X's are, we have AI nodes that are in there. And what we were using these AI nodes for in the past was to just format data. In this case, we were formatting date and timestamps into ISO 8601 format. Not important for you to really understand at this moment. And then also we were reformatting dates into epoch time in milliseconds. And that's because the system that we were integrating with, Go High Level, which hosted the calendars, requested that those formats be exactly what they are. So it needs the data in a specific format in order to take the action. Now, this also costs money because now we're using AI in two different spots in this specific workflow, which we're going to pay for every time we hit the OpenAI API. Now, the costs are minimal, and so it's the cost of doing business. I'm not totally against using AI nodes inside of reactive workflows. I actually think it's extremely powerful, and in some cases should be used. But if you don't have to use it, especially in this case when all we're doing is formatting data, then we can cut that cost and reduce the complexity. And we did in this most recent workflow. I say we, me. I did in the most recent workflow. It seems like a redundant use of AI, right? Because as I mentioned before, the voice AI agent is already utilizing those same large language models inside of their platform. And so why are we going to then again reprocess that data after it's already been analyzed on the voice AI side? Instead, why don't we just tell the voice AI agent to do it for us? And so that's what we do in here. This is more stable than the agentic workflow, but it can still vary because those specific AI nodes rely on prompting, and your prompting and my prompting skills if you're just copying and pasting what I'm doing, which I don't recommend. I recommend you watch this, you understand it, and then you make it your own. So that's why we've gone to this model. And so if I come down here, this looks like a spaghetti workflow, and I hate very complicated workflows, and this is pretty much bordering the line of a very complicated workflow, but it's pretty simple. And in reality, you can make this more modular, meaning you can break it into smaller pieces if you'd like to and make different workflows. But the reason I decided to go with one workflow is for one reason specifically, and let me see if I can get my highlighter out here, and that's this right here. I wanted to be able to I wanted to be able to take that webhook, and that webhook comes with an address. If you don't know what I'm talking about, we're going to hop in the workflow here in a second. Comes with an address, and I wanted that address to be consistent. And the reason is because when we create our voice agent, we're going to create multiple functions, and I didn't want to have to track different endpoint URLs or webhook URLs for every single function. I wanted it all to go to one function, and then I wanted to handle splitting it out at the workflow level, because for me, it's just easier to see and easier to control one workflow vice 5 workflows. Now, that's not always the case, and often it's not the case. I often recommend breaking workflows into their own small modular functionalities because you can scale that and you can troubleshoot that. But in this case, I decided to keep it all in one. Now, all this does, if I scroll up here to the mind map, I think this may be a bit of a simpler depiction of this whole thing, is essentially we're receiving an inbound call. Think if you call a doctor's office and it says, hey, press 3 if you want to get to our appointment line. And so if you press 3, what's going to happen is it's going to ring the appointment line. And let's say that this voice AI agent, this voice AI receptionist that we created is on the other end of that appointment line. Here's what's going to happen. First and foremost, as soon as that inbound call comes in, we are going to either search for the contact ID or we are going to create the contact. So assuming that the contact doesn't exist, and we'll create a new contact, but if the contact does exist, then we're just going to provide the contact ID from our CRM, go high level, to the voice agent itself, so it has that data so we can use it later. Now, the voice AI agent is then going to determine the intent of the caller. If the caller is calling to book a new appointment, then what we're going to do is we're going to search for open slots. And if there's any open slots, we're going to tell the person, or if they requested a specific appointment, we're still going to check for open slots just to make sure that appointment is in fact available. And if it is, then we'll go ahead and book the appointment, confirm it, and then end the call, just to simplify the situation. Now, let's say if they're inquiring about an existing appointment, let's say somebody calls and they're saying, hey, like you heard in the demo call, I have an existing appointment. I forgot what time it was at. We can actually look up that appointment. And I purposefully only look up that appointment from the caller's phone number. And I don't give the caller an opportunity to add more information, essentially like an email address or somebody else's phone number to look up appointments. And I do that on purpose. I do that for security reasons or I should say privacy reasons. You wouldn't want a random caller being able to provide a random phone number and actually collect data based on their appointments, especially if you're dealing with, say, a medical clinic. In that case, I think if the appointment was not booked with the phone number that they called from, then that would be a good opportunity for you to transfer that call to a human. I think the vast majority of times people are on their cell phones, and so if they book that call already on their cell phones, then we should have no problem finding the contact and no problem finding the appointment. So if they're just calling to find an appointment, we do exactly that. We give them the information and we end the call. If they want to update that appointment, say cancel or reschedule it, we can also do that with this workflow. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and hop in. And I'm going to remind you that all this information, if you need to pause the video and go into the school community and download the Retell AI agent and download the N8N workflow, I highly recommend that you do so you can follow along. In this video, and for the purposes of brevity, I'm not going to go over the creation of every single node. I'm not going to recreate this workflow. However, I am going to go in and show you exactly what is happening so that way you understand it. Now, the first thing we need to do, and I'm going to actually bring over a tab here from Go High Level. The first thing we're going to do, if you haven't done so already, you see I have these 2 yellow notes present inside of the N8N workflow. And they say create your GHL credential and replace your location ID and calendar IDs in here. So when you import this, when you import this JSON file that I'm going to allow you to download inside the school community, there are a few things that need to be changed. Not much, but a few things. And so I'm going to come in here and let me drag this over. Bear with me. So if you see here, I'm in a demo account, and the first thing you need to do, if you haven't already created a credential in the past, you're going to need to be able to access Go High Level's version 2 API. Now, I've already done all the work of structuring the API request for you, but you do still need to provide a credential, and I'm going to show you how to do that right here. So if you come into settings and you go to private integrations, When you come in here, what you need to do is you need to create a credential. Now, I'm maxed out on credentials here because I've been doing a bunch of testing, but if you come inside of a credential or you create a new one, you'll be presented with a screen like this. And so you can name it whatever you want. You can add a description, but the most important thing that you need is these scopes. Second most important thing. The next most important thing is what pops up afterwards. So the scopes here are important. These are essentially the permissions that you grant to the credentials that you're creating. So essentially, hey, what do you want that N8N workflow to be able to access? And in our case, we want to be able to view contacts, view calendar events, edit calendar events, view calendars, and edit calendars in order to accomplish our workflow. Now, we may be able to get rid of edit calendars, but we certainly need to view calendars in order to get availability. And these scopes can be changed at any moment. Now, if you're creating a credential from scratch, you would select the scopes, and then on the next screen, you'll be presented with an API key, and it looks like a long random string of letters. It is very important that you copy that API key, store it somewhere securely, because once you click OK, you're not going to be able to see it again. Now, you can always delete keys and recreate keys, but for the purpose of this, you're going to need to copy that key, and then I'll show you what to do with it here. So once you're in here, let's just say I'm going to pop open a random node here. All right, right now I have a header auth right here, generic credential type for authentication, header authentication, and then my header auth key right here is named Brad Test. This is just when I was showing a friend how to do this. So the name of this is not really relevant, but if you come down here, you'll see, if you've never done this before, you'll see create new credential. And what you want to do here is you want to name this credential something identifying that you will remember. You know, to YouTube testing. And very important in here, what you need to do is the name here needs to be authorization. It needs to be spelled correctly. It needs to have a capital A, and there needs to be no spaces before or after. And then under the value, what I want you to do is hover over here and click expression. And then what you want to do is type bearer with a capital B, exactly as I'm typing it here, BEARER space, and then just paste your API key, your private integration key that you got from Go High Level in here. Now, this is very case sensitive and also very special character sensitive, and a space is a special character. So don't make any extra spaces. The only spaces that are in here are between bearer and the API key itself, and it's only one space. And then you paste the key, and then you can go ahead and click save. Now I'm going to go ahead and exit out of here, but that's step one for trying to, let me exit out, for trying to modify this and adapt this for your own workflow. The next thing you're going to need to do is pop open this set variables node. And you'll notice here, whenever you import your N8N workflow, these will say replace me. And what you need to do is you need to provide a calendar ID and a location ID from your Go High Level account. And I'm going to show you how to find that. So we'll start with the calendar ID. Assuming you already have a calendar created, I'm still in the settings section. You want to click on calendars. And then under calendar, you have these IDs. You see every single calendar here, there's IDs. You just press this little copy icon, and then you would want to paste it right over here. In your implementation, you're going to see the words replace me. Just remove replace me and replace it with the calendar ID. And to get your location ID, I'm still in the settings. What you need to do is click on business profile, and right up here in the top sort of center area, you'll see a location ID. You just copy that, come inside here, and replace your location. Now, what we're going to do here also, what I'm going to recommend you do is come over here and copy this URL. I would copy the production URL if you're going to use this in production, but if you're going to use this in testing, you can copy the test URL because you are going to need to reference this whenever you import the Retell AI agent. I'm going to show you that here in a second. So if you're going to use the test URL, one thing you're going to want to know is you're going to have to start listening every single time you see this listen for events. You also see it down here. If I delete this and I say test workflow, let me unpin this data for you because I have some old data here that I was working with. If I click test workflow, you're going to have to click that every single time because if not, then the webhook isn't listening. And so the reason I recommend you using the production URL is that you can use the production URL and essentially turn the workflow on. And that way it's always listening. So as you try to get open slots or book a new appointment or find existing appointments, it's already listening and you don't have to try to play the game of trying to listen and catch the right webhook. And it becomes pretty difficult to keep up with if you do it that route. So I recommend the production workflow. So that's how you work with the workflow. Now, if you're new to N8N, and I probably should have started with this, and you want to import the workflow, essentially you can sign up for N8N. I think they offer a free trial. You go into create a new workflow, and and then this should be a blank slate, and you'll click these three dots here, and then you'll say import from file, and then here you would provide the file that I give you, the JSON file inside of the school community, and you'll be right here at this screen just like I am. So very similarly inside of Retell AI, if you don't know what Retell AI is and you don't know what voice AI agents are, then this may be a little bit of an advanced topic for you. But Retell AI is just a voice AI agent provider. And so essentially this is the personality or the AI voice behind the call that you listen to in the beginning. There are multiple providers out there like Vappy, Synthflow, and Assistable, and every day there's a new one that comes out. And we're just using Retell here, and I'm providing you with a Retell agent. It is free to sign up. So if you sign up, you can import this agent so that you can follow along with us. You don't have to pay anything. Although I do think that if you want to purchase a phone number or make an inbound call, you need to add a payment method. But this is a demo account that I have here. And I've tested a ton of AI agents so far and built out this entire workflow. And I think I still have $1.03 left on my free $10 credit. So even though I have a payment method, I really haven't spent a dime just yet. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the JSON file that you downloaded from the school community, and you're just going to click import. And I'm just going to go ahead and drag and drop the Retell agent into here. And so I'll save. And there's a few things that I want to show you. So once you come into this agent after it's imported, you notice that the main prompt is essentially a boilerplate prompt. And the reason I did this is because I figured that most of you people watching are running your own agencies, or maybe you're trying to implement this for your business. And so all I wanted to do is provide you with the most minimal amount of prompt so that you can essentially insert your business information and accomplish the same task with your business and adapt it to your business. And what I have here is just a very bare bones prompt just to show the functionality of this AI agent. Now, a few things. If you come over here to functions, you'll notice that by importing the AI agent that I provided, you already have 4 custom functions created, so you don't have to recreate it. Now, this is going to save you a ton of time because in each one of these specific functions, there's JSON schema. And I'm not going to go over the inner workings of JSON schema, but essentially it can get pretty complicated. You can use ChatGPT to help you. If you want to try to understand this, you can just copy this JSON schema and then paste it into ChatGPT and have it explain it to you, have it explain what it's doing. So the reason I provided you with a template is it makes it easy and all these are created. However, it's very important that if you pop open these functions, you notice that the URLs say replaceme.com. And that's not exactly where we want to send our stuff. It's just a placeholder for your webhook because your webhook is going to be different than my webhook. So remember when I told you you need to come in here, find your production URL, copy it and paste it? Well, you're going to have to do that in here. So go ahead and find the replace me URL and click update. If you get this error, you just click OK and click format JSON. Click update again, and you'll be good to go. Now, next thing you need to do is come into every single one of these and replace me.com with your webhook. Click format JSON, click update. Same here. I already clicked that one. Find appointments, replace me.com, format JSON, update, and then book appointments, replace me.com, format JSON, and update. So at this point, all of the custom functions should have the correct webhook. Now remember, we put this all in one workflow, so all the webhooks remain the same. And so if you come down here to webhook settings and you want the end of workflow, the end of call workflow to go here, or maybe you want the end of call workflow to go somewhere else, you can just paste your webhook in here. Now to be clear, there's nothing inside of my current workflow that catches the end of call report and does anything with it. But if you wanted to do something with the end of call report, then you can either put a different webhook URL or the same URL and just build in some functionality here to process the end of workflow URL. And you'll see where the opportunities to do this lie once I go through all the nodes inside of the workflow. Now, next thing you want to change is the inbound call webhook URL. So if you try to paste something in here, it's actually going to yell at you once you click out, and it's going to say, hey, we've changed where this exists. This is actually in the phone number settings now in Retell. So if I click this, it'll tell us, hey, please change the phone level webhook. And if we come in here, you'll see that you can paste the URL in there. Now, I'm not going to overwrite this one because this is my but my testing one that I wanted to show you here on this demo. So I'm not going to overwrite it. But you would need to put your webhook URL inside the phone settings as well. Now, that's all you'll need to do. I'm going to go ahead and delete this agent because we already have one that looks identical and is actually functional. And as you can see, we have a phone number attached to it. And if I come in here, you'll see that my functions are the same, just so you could see that I'm not hiding anything. The current time and all that stuff, the main prompt is the same, and the webhook settings are the same. Now, one function that I like to show you is this current time right here. This is very important. AI is not good at telling time. And so luckily, Retell AI and Vappy AI give us access to standard variables, and one of these variables are current time. And most recently, Retell released an update that shows us exactly how we can specify a time zone for our current time, because before it was limited to Pacific Standard Time, and so you would have to do some sort of conversions, but now we're just providing the current time in our time zone. And it doesn't matter, even if you're an international business, we'll still be able to book appointments in different time zones. If you notice, like over here, if you come in to book appointments, we have the caller time zone as one of the pieces of data that we pass over to N8N. And so that information will be pulled out in the call. And if it's not already pulled out in the call, you can come over here and say information needed, caller time zone required. You could say something like that, and you can make sure that information is being passed. So I'm going to delete that for now because we don't need it for this demo. All right, so hopefully that explains how to import the Retell AI agent and what changes you need to make in order to make this work. Now what I want to do is I want to go through this entire workflow and show you exactly what each and every node does. And so we're going to sort of start over here on the left, and then we're going to make it to the right, and then we'll start top to bottom. And so if you come over here, we have the webhook. That's self-explanatory. That is the trigger. Essentially, it is listening for a message from Retell AI. Once that message is received, it's going to start the workflow. And here we already went over this, but we're setting variables. And all this is doing is setting values that are going to be used over and over again inside of the workflow. And so we're just setting it in one spot in order to, in order to reuse them in the future. And so if we come into here, we have this switch node, and this switch node is sort of a router. And what this switch node is doing, if we pop it open, is it's looking at the specific body. Let's see if we can pull up a prior execution. I'm going to pull this up and copy this to the editor so we have some data we're working with. If you come in here, you notice that we're essentially routing the workflow to different sections of the workflow depending on what the event is. And so if you look here, we're looking at the webhook. There's a field called event. And so if you look at the webhook here and you scroll all the way down, let's see if I can find the event, JSON body name. So this was a tool call. I'm going to collapse this just so we can go down to the relevant portion. Where are you? Right here. Okay, so you notice here, this name is update appointment, right? And so this is the tool that's being called. Those names correspond with these custom functions right here. So depending on what function is being called, what tool is being called, it's going to directly impact what route it takes in this workflow. And that's all this switch node is doing, is it's looking for that field whenever the webhook comes in, and it's saying, hey, if you're a get open slots, go down this path. If you're a book appointment, go down this path. If you're a find appointment, go down this path. If you're an update appointment, go down this path, okay? And so the one nuance is that on the inbound call, remember inside here, we actually set an inbound call webhook. So when a call comes in, that webhook is automatically fired and it goes to the N8N workflow, and we account for that right here. So essentially, hey, if there's an event field in here, which this webhook does not have an event field because it's a function call, a tool call. If it does have an event field and that event field is equal to call_inbound, then go to the top. And so let's go ahead and go to the top and see what we're doing. So we're going to follow this path here in the router. And the first thing we're going to do is search for contacts using GoHighLevels API. And we're going to use, as I mentioned earlier, the phone number that they called from in order to search for contacts. Now, in this case, you're going to see that this is undefined. And actually, it'd probably be helpful if I find an execution where that inbound webhook was actually called. So let's see in our execution history if I can find a situation where that was called. Bear with me. All right, so I found one where the inbound webhook was actually found or was actually called. So let's go back here into the switch node so you can see what it looks like. So this was an inbound webhook, an inbound call webhook. And so if I go ahead and collapse this so that the event now exists in this one, and it didn't exist in the last one I showed you. And the event is actually equal to call inbound, and so it's going to take this path. Now, first thing that's going to happen is we're going to search for contacts inside of Go High Level, and you'll see we're searching by the contact or the phone number that the caller called from, and only the phone number that the caller called from, because I want privacy to remain intact. And if you don't have possession of that phone, then you probably shouldn't be rescheduling those appointments. Now, that may not always be true in your implementation, but if you wanted to query by something else, then you can put logic in here in order to support your use case. But for me, I just decided, hey, we're only going to query by the caller's phone number. And then we have some other things like location ID and result limits here. Now, if we come down here, we notice that this search contacts was actually successful and we found a contact. I can tell because we have a contact ID of 0. However, if there was no contact, so if you see total down here, if I collapse this for a second, you see the total is 1, meaning we found 1 contact. And so long as your Go High Level is configured to not allow duplicate contacts, then you should only find 1. But we found 1 contact. However, if it was equal to 0, that means there's no contact in our CRM for that appointment or for that contact. And so it would come up here to the true section, because if it was equal to 0, to go to true, and then we would create a new contact using that caller's phone number, and then we would just respond to Retell and give Retell the contact ID. But because this contact already existed, we found the contact, and so we went down the false lane, and then we provided Retell with the contact name and the contact ID. If I pop this open, you'll see that all that stuff was automatically filled in because we got the results from the search contact. Now, next thing I want to show you is what happens when we're using the get open slots function. So right here, if we called and we said, hey, I want to book an appointment for Wednesday, what do you have available? Then the voice AI agent would call the get open slots function, and then the following will occur. Now, let me see if I can go into my prior executions and pull up a time where I went and executed the get open slots so that you can see exactly the flow. All right, in this execution, we called the get open slots function. And so let's come in here so that you could take a look at the webhook. And you noticed if let's go ahead and collapse some of this stuff and we scroll down, the name of the function that was called was get open slots. And so because of that, we actually took this route and now we're going to get open slots. Now, what happens here? Well, the webhook is actually providing us with some important information, and one of them is the requested time slot. Okay, so if there was, say, hey, if the caller said, hey, I want to see what you guys have available for Wednesday afternoon, then we would use AI inside of Retell in order to provide a requested time slot already pre-formatted, so we don't have to use AI or reformat using AI here inside of N8N. I'll show you sort of where that instruction exists. And so you see here in the JSON schema, we have this field called requested appointment. And in the description, we say this. And so I'm not going to read this verbatim, but you can read it. Essentially, it's providing us with a timestamp where the person is requesting an appointment, the caller is requesting an appointment in the specific format that we need it. And we give it some examples here inside of the schema. But what's happening here is Go High Level wants this information in a specific format. And so if you reference their docs, they want a start date and an end date in what's called epoch time in milliseconds. So we need to do some time conversion, and I don't want to use AI. So the way we do it is with these 3 time nodes. And essentially, I'm taking the start date, okay, and then I'm formatting it as a Unix MS timestamp. That's synonymous with epoch time in milliseconds, okay? Unix time, epoch time, used synonymously. Not incredibly important that you understand exactly what that is or the origins of it, but we need to be able to format in order for our tool to work appropriately. Next thing we do is we add a day. Okay, so we just take that last timestamp and then we add a day, and you see it spits out a format which we need to also convert. This is ISO 8601 format. We need it in epoch time in milliseconds again. And so that's all this last field does, or this last node does, is it converts that time into a field called end date and epoch time in milliseconds. And then we use those 2 variables, start date and end date, inside of our API call to find open slots for that calendar. And there's a few other fields in here like calendar ID. That is a path parameter. We dynamically fill that with whatever we put in our set variables node in the beginning. That's why I said it's important for you to copy your calendar ID and place it in there in order for this to work correctly. And you see here this API call responded with a bunch of open slots. Now, Something important here, and just another mechanism of simplicity, is we're using one respond to webhook workflow. So in the past, I would have each and every one of these have a response to the webhook. But what I found is, why not just give the information to Retell and let Retell do whatever it wants with that information? Now, some of you may argue that that's going to cost you extra money. You're providing too much data. Maybe there's some character limits. All those are valid criticisms. But for the sake of this tooling, I found that this all works. And I think that it is the simplest way to do it and helps you leverage the AI that's already provided to you and that you're already paying for inside of Retell. And so if we come in here to response to webhook, you notice that we're providing a result, and that result is essentially the entire result that came from this API call. And we're just passing that over to Retell AI. And if you noticed here in the rules, we say, hey, when using get open slots, only suggest 2 of the most reasonable appointments times. So it's not going to go through and try to list every single one of these appointment times. So very important. Now, what happens when we go down the book appointment route? And I'm going to go ahead and pause the video and find a execution where we booked an appointment so we can walk through it. All right, so we're back here and we have the router showing us that we caught a webhook, which forced us down the book appointment path. And this is a pretty simple path. We essentially have an API call to go high level in order to book an appointment on the specified calendar ID that we set earlier in the set variables node, in the location that we set earlier in the variables node, with the specific start time that was provided by the caller and formatted by Retell and provided via this webhook. And then we have the appointment title. Essentially, if the caller gave us a name, then the appointment gets titled the caller's name, or not, it'll just say voice AI booked appointment for the appointment title. And you see here on the right, we have an ID return and the status is confirmed. And so we know that the appointment was booked successfully. And all we do is send that back to Retell in order for it to know. Retell smart enough to read all this and determine sort of the sentiment of this response and say, hey, we're confirmed. Okay. It can read the JSON that's provided and say, hey, we confirmed the appointment. And that's what you heard inside of the demo call that I demonstrated earlier. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is find an execution where we use this get existing appointments so we can walk through that side. Stand by. Okay, in this execution, we had a tool call, which was get existing appointments, and that's using find appointments, the find appointments tool here. And so if we hit the switch node, the tool call was find appointments. And so it went down the find appointments path. And then all we do is use the go high level API to find existing appointments. Now, this is an important one and one that can be overly complicated if you try to solve for multiple appointments and canceled appointments and appointments in the past. I'm going to show you exactly how I solved this inside of Retell just using AI. And so you notice that inside of the workflow, we kept it simple. We just got the data and we provided it. What would happen is if there were multiple events, didn't matter if they were in the past or in the present, those events will all be listed inside of this response. And so here in this example, we only have one event, but in the event that there's multiple events, a lot of events there, you would have them all listed here. So you would have 0, you would have 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. And then all the different ones will have different appointment statuses. We just give all of that back to Retell exactly as it comes. And then in our prompt, what we say is, hey, whenever you're using find appointments, focus on confirmed appointments that focus on the confirmed appointment that is nearest to the current time. Only say the day and time in natural language and omit the year. And so what we're doing there is we're saying, hey, out of all the data that you receive, focus on the confirmed appointments and focus on the most recent confirmed appointment, because that's probably the one that the caller is calling about. And if that wasn't what the caller was calling about, it doesn't matter. What's pretty cool is that Retell already has access to all that data. And so it doesn't even have to call this webhook again in order to receive the data. It knows the entire appointment history of the contact. And so if the contact has a question about another appointment or a previous appointment, it can ask the question and Retell will be able to respond immediately without having to recall the tool. And so hopefully that makes sense. Now, in the next one, what I want to do is show you what happens when we want to update an existing appointment. So let me just pause the video so I can go ahead and find an execution where we actually updated an existing appointment. All right, now in this execution, we probably said, hey, can you update an existing appointment? Or hey, can you find this appointment and reschedule that appointment on Wednesday at 2, whatever we said in the demo call. It's actually going and calling this tool update appointment. And so because of that, it's hitting the switch node. It's hitting that filter and matching and coming all the way down this route. Now, in this case, we said reschedule appointment. And so when we have another switch node here, we're saying, hey, if it's cancel or reschedule, if we pop this open here, you notice that we have appointment action as one of the properties. Now, this is one of the more complicated JSON schemas. But again, if you want to understand this, you can copy and paste this into ChatGPT and have it explain it. But essentially, we have the appointment action right here. And we're saying, hey, this is the action the caller is requesting, and here's the examples, cancel and reschedule. So that's how we're using that data in order to route specific paths in our workflow. And I want to show you something else that's pretty cool inside of the schema is the event ID. So if we pop open this node right here, which is an API call to GoHighLevel's version 2 API, it requires us to provide an event ID in the path. And so how do we get that event ID? We have that event ID because we found existing appointments. And if we didn't have the event ID, then Retell AI is smart enough to use the tools that it has, which is find appointment, the find appointment function here, to go ahead and find the appointment IDs. And I'm going to show you where that's relevant. So if you come in here and we look at the definition of event ID, it says the event ID of the relevant appointment from using the find appointments function. And so what's really neat about this is that if the Retell AI agent used the find appointments function in the past and it got results, then it has all the event IDs of all the prior appointments and confirmed appointments and future appointments for the contact. And so it's smart enough to be able to look at that data set and pick the right appointment ID. And in all my testing, it always got it right. And so it's very powerful. So now the event ID is provided over with the function call. And so if we come over here, you see it's lit up green. And if I pop this open, it automatically filled the correct event ID for that appointment that I wanted to reschedule. And then the rescheduling, all it does is change the start time. And then if we wanted to cancel appointment, all it does is change the appointment status to canceled. And all this information for all these API calls are available inside of GoHighLevel's version 2 API documentation. But if you're using a separate system, I would do the same. I would just reference their API documentation and make sure that we structure these API keys appropriately. Now, that is pretty much the end of this system. Now, this system took me quite a bit of time to create, but what's very awesome is that this is working reliably, and this can be extremely helpful for businesses that rely heavily on appointment booking. And so hopefully you found this information in this video valuable. And if you did, as a reminder, if you made it this long, first and foremost, thank you. But as a reminder, click the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed. And then also if you need to get the information, which honestly, I don't know how you follow this without the templates that I provide, go ahead and join the school community. I'll leave a link down below and the assets, the JSON templates will be provided in there. So hopefully you enjoy this video. See you on the next one. Have a good one. Peace.